The journalist and author Clive Smith's deeply moving book, How the Word is Passed, explores the ongoing legacy of slavery in America by taking us on his journey to several key monuments and landmarks, including former plantations, to explore how they preserve and perpetuate their histories. On one hand, Virginia's Monticello is now a museum that includes a tour showing visitors the lives lived by Jefferson's own slaves. On the other hand, Louisiana's Angola is now a maximum security prison that offers no tours, but does contain thousands of inmates, overwhelmingly black, who labor for pennies per hour. This Shabbat's Torah portion, Parashat Devarim, begins by pinpointing the exact locations from where Moses begins his valedictory address to the Israelites. In the Arava opposite Suf, between Paran and Tofel, Lavan, Chatzerot, Dizahav, 11 days from Chorev by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. The rabbis of the Midrash understand that these are not necessarily actual places you'd find on a map. They're actually subtle references to the various missteps the Israelites made over the course of their 40 years in the wilderness. For example, the word Zahav means gold, so the place name Dizahav is actually a reference to the sin of the golden calf. Moses employed these subtle references, say the rabbis, in order to more gently rebuke the people. But the 18th century Hasidic master, Rabbi Natan of Breslov, cites in this context a different and more famous rabbinic teaching: do not judge your fellow until you stand in their place. Reading this teaching and that midrash together in an insightfully literal way, he suggested that one cannot truly understand an event unless you are literally in its place, unless you also understand the context, the place, the time, the circumstances surrounding that event. One understanding of Rabbi Natan is that by invoking the circumstances, Moses may have been trying to absolve the Israelites of some guilt. Like, for example, at Monticello, tour guides and visitors told Smith that there was not a great contradiction between Jefferson's rhetoric about liberty on one hand and his ownership of hundreds of slaves on the other because of the cultural context in which he lived. Conversely, a more nuanced interpretation of Rabbi Natan might be that Moses wanted the Israelites to fully understand what their ancestors had done wrong, and that full understanding could only happen in a complete historical context, including bringing them back literally to the exact place in which the misdeed took place. At Virginia's Blandford Cemetery, Smith noted the marble archway at the entry with the inscription, "Our Confederate Heroes." He observed the memorial that takes place each year, dedicated to the 30,000 Confederate soldiers buried there, depicted in the on-site church's original Tiffany windows. It's easy in a place like this, he noticed, to glorify the heroism and the valor of Confederate soldiers and to gloss over what they were actually fighting for. The true significance of the place and those who continue to revere it today only becomes apparent within a broader context. The Jewish tradition tells us that each generation that does not see the rebuilding of the temple, whose destruction we will commemorate next Wednesday evening and Thursday on Tisha B'Av, is considered to have perpetuated the sins that caused its destruction. This is a time for looking back into the past, just as Clive Smith does for America, and understanding that it is still there in us. That painful understanding is the first step towards our eventual redemption. Shabbat Shalom.